and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and we also have a special guest today. We have Coco, my cat. She's made an appearance for the first time in all of them, so yes, that's my little cat. But anyway, in this tutorial, we're going to set up our Maya project and possibly do a little bit of Postvis as well, so you can get an idea of what we're going to do. This will probably be a very, very quick tutorial. We'll just be setting up our project, so it will help us in the long run for keeping everything organized, and then when we eventually go to lighting, rendering stuff, it all goes to the right place, and it's a really simple thing to do. So hope you've been enjoying these tutorials. They're going to start to get a bit more creative now. We're heading into the sort of, after this one we should be doing the modeling stage, so we'll get a good idea of what we're going to make, although it's a bird box, but when we set up our project and we do a small bit of post-viz, we'll do some really basic modeling and just see what it's going to look like in the shot. So yeah, if hit that like button and subscribe, and let's get going. Okay, so we have Maya open, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to just set this all up for our project settings. So in the previous one we made our match move and we've done our layout, but we've kind of not put it in a central place for us to be useful. So this is a really good way to set up your Maya projects, especially if you're planning on giving it to someone else, because then you can just give them the whole project file, and it just keeps everything organized and tidy. So I'm just going to go to File, and you should go down to Project and Project Window, and it should open up this. And basically what this is going to do, this is going to set up our primary project locations. So basically, once we've set this, it'll automatically look where our scenes are, and images and source images, but most importantly, when we do all our rendering and stuff like that, it's going to render it to this folder. So everything that we now do in this scene after we've done this will be automatically located here. So I'm going to select New, and I'm going to call this Bird Box. And I'll call it project, just so I know. You can call it whatever you like, basically, as long as you know this is where your project files are. I'm just doing it because I think I might have already called something bird box. Anyway, so I'm just going to go to this little window, this little folder here, and I'm just going to go to my so I've done bird box here, and this has got my other stuff in here, so probably will eventually could move this over, but I'm going to do it and select in here. So now it's going to go to VX Core Skills/IO, and I'll just select accept, and that will look like that's done absolutely nothing. But now if we go set project, we can now see that our bird box project is in here. And you can put it in something else. You can call it something else. You can call it Maya project or something like that. This is why it's quite important to name your things correctly so you don't get them mixed up. But we can now see that our project is already set to bird box project. So we can actually just set that, and it shouldn't change. So now if we go File, Save Scene As, see how now at the top here, it's automatically going to save it in my bird box project scenes. So now I'm just going to call it Bird Box VO1 and save as, and now you can see at the bottom it's saved it there already. So that's really simple. So if I need to go File, Open Scene, it will automatically go there. So it makes everything a lot easier, so you don't have to look through stuff. It just makes everything so much easier for you. So I would advise doing this for when you get to this point. Do this for your shots. And if you've got multiple projects, you can make different ones as well. So that's where you go to like set project. And if you've got different projects you're doing, I don't know, something else, you can select it and it will automatically navigate to that. But yeah, so we've done that. We've set it all up. It's saving in the right place. Most importantly, also, if we just go up to the top here, and if we select our render settings, if we just leave it on common, we can see that the path for our render, if we render any images out now, it's going to go to VFX Tutors, Core Skills, Bird Box, Project Images. So it's all maps to the correct place. So we don't have to change any directories or anything like that. It's already done for us. That's why it's so useful. So now we've set our project, we're just going to load in the stuff that we've done. We're going to do a little bit of Postvis. This is not going to be a very long tutorial, I don't think. So if it was just this, it'd probably be over now, but we'll go. So I'm just going to go File, Import. And you see how it's, even with import, it's now taking us to the project. And if we go up, we can now see all these files. So I'm actually going to move my layout now. So I've got my layout VO1. I'm going to import that in. And that should import our initial layout that we did. So now we should have this. If we turn on our hardware texturing, it should have brought the texture with it. Yep. And you can now see that it's got, because we've imported it, it's also got the namespace on it, but let's not worry about that. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm just going to group this, and I'm going to call this layout. You can call it anything you want. LOGO. I'm going to call it LO layout group, because that's got our geo in, just so it's organized and out the way. And you can also make a layer if you want. So you can create if you select the little square and circle, it will add this to the layer and create a new one. And that means you can turn it off and on, or set it to reference so you can't select it. So we're just going to call this layout geo. Cool. So now we can turn that off and on with ease. So now our next thing we want to do is we want to import in our match move that we did from the previous one, from the previous tutorial, sorry. So if you just go import, and so we want to import our cam in. So hopefully if we open up our scene, we should have our BGO1 camera. We also need to set our timeline as well. Start at 1001. So we should have 3 cameras in here now. So we've got our sequence camera. So if we push that into there, for some reason that's... Let's see why that's not loaded in. Okay, so I've opened up 3D and I noticed that my last save I accidentally left those off. So if you haven't exported your stuff with these off, you might want to select these all, modify and active. Then you'll also have to press Alt-C and solve again. And you can see that it's got both the cameras. Sorry about that, that was my fault. And yeah, we should have our cameras in there now. Cool, so I'm just gonna, I could just cut this out and no one would ever know. But no, because then if you've done that, you might wonder why. So I'm actually just gonna call this VO2. And select OK. And now that's exported. So now if I go back to my Maya, I'm actually just gonna delete this. Then I'm just going to go File, Import, and import my version 2. And you might not have this. You might have it exported yours out correctly. It happens. Cool. So we can see now we've got our animation on there. On our main BGO1 camera. We've got this lens grid camera, which we do not need anymore. We can just delete that. And now we've got this camera, which is our reference camera. Yeah, it's only got 1 frame on it. But this allows us to line up our balls and chart a little bit closer than just randomly placing them where we think. So I'm going to call this match move. And it doesn't matter that we can group this all together afterwards. So I'm just going to hide this for now. and I only want this one. So now the next thing that we want to do, and you can hide your point group as well. We don't necessarily need to see our points, but if you want to, these are really useful for, say if you wanted to place things, you still have all the points in the relative depth. So first thing that I want to do is, if I select my bird box, and I'm just going to middle mouse drag it over to here, or you can go to panels, perspective. In fact, I'm going to rename this to, if you run cam, in fact, I'm going to call this render cam. And I'm going to change this one to EL01 ref cam. So that's effectively an element plate. We haven't named it as an element plate, but this is not something that we use. So we want to make sure that we know that this is our render cam. So the first thing that we want to do is this brings in the original image sequence. So we actually do need to, I'm just going to change this because that does annoy me when it's not. So we do need to change this to our undistorted plate. So first thing that I'm going to do is just going to select my camera, go to my attributes editor. If I just click on this little arrow over here and go to my image plane shape, I can now scroll down to where it's reading the bird box images, and it's reading it from the elements BGO1, but we need the one with the UDP. So let's navigate to where we undistorted our plate. And elements UDP. If we select open, and it will bring in the first frame, but we need to make sure that you select image sequence. So now we can see that's got the, well, you can't really tell to be honest, but if I turn this to X-ray, it might help. We can see that this is lining up really well. And it's all working. So I'm just going to turn X-ray off. So the next thing that I kind of want to do, because you can take this off the end. You see how it kind of, we want set our render camera to 1266. And if you remove this from the end of the footage, that's absolutely fine. It just, for me, they're both easy options. You can have it in separate folders, but you could also just change your timeline and you'll never be the wiser. Then we can do the same for our reference cam. We don't actually need to hide that. We can just, so we drag it back in. And this is just a single frame. So I'm just going to go into, select my reference cam, and it should select the image plane already. And I'm just going to go to, so we've got 1266. So I want to select 1267. And that's got our reference. And it's our undistorted one, so we don't need the image sequence, we just need one image. So now we've got two cameras. We've got our sequence camera, which we'll do all our rendering from. And we've just got this reference camera, which allows us to now place these balls in the correct place and to do our lighting reference. And it's a very small thing. You don't have to do this at all, but it means that now we're narrowing down. So if I just select these two cameras, I'm just going to scale them up. And it just means, like, it's up to you. It probably won't make too much of a difference. I like to try and keep everything as nice, as close as possible, and as accurate as possible. It just means when I now try to match my light up with my light probe, I'm actually looking at it from a more accurate angle. Because don't forget, we put this in the center of the scene, so the HDRI will naturally come in at the center as well. So we've got just a little bit of a better angle. To be honest, it's a tiny amount. Most of the time the plates are right in front of it, but for this case I just like to do it like this. You don't have to do this at all. Cool, so we've kind of set that up, and the first thing that I'm doing, I'm just going to go save scene as, and I am a terrible person for, I always version up, and I always use ASCII files. The reason why you want to use ASCII files is if you're scene gets corrupt, we can fix that. And if you can't open it, we can fix that. We can open it up, and we can find the error in the source code. If you save it as a binary, yeah, that's fine. You'll have smaller file sizes. But if your scene is corrupt, it's gone forever. You can't, unless you can read ones and zeros, it's gone. But with a Maya ASCII file, it means that it will be a larger file, but you'll be able to fix, if you've got a completely corrupt file and you can't open it, we'll be able to fix it. And luckily, a couple of days ago, actually, I did actually have a corrupt file, and I've been waiting for one for quite a long time, just so I could do a tutorial on how to fix it. But it doesn't always happen. That's why there's not really that many tutorials on it. But when it does, it's frustrating. And if you don't know how to fix it, you usually end up just not ever trying to fix it, because it's quite complex sometimes. Cool, so we've saved that now, and we've set up so this is almost kind of like a second pass layout. We've got our cameras in here, so this is going to be quite a quick tutorial, so we can do some very, very quick Postvis on what it's going to look like. So what I'm going to do is, I've got some small measurements of some random bird box that I found, and I've kind of got an idea of what type of bird box, and I'll bring up the reference when we do the modelling, because there's no point now, but you'll get an idea of what I'm doing. So it's quite a small bird box, and these are sort of the rough measurements, and we'll do it more accurately once we actually get into the modelling stage. And this is just Postvis, so it doesn't have to be anything amazing. So I'm just going to make a cube. I'm going to go for my width. I'm going to put in 15 centimeters, height 18, and my depth. Oh no, my height needs to be 21. My depth needs to be 18. Cool. So those are the rough measurements and you don't even have to be using these. You can make your own bird box. It doesn't have to be this. But if I just pull this out, you can see we've got a pretty basic box. So actually, if I undo that and put that back at the center, and if I control 1 on that, I can look at it now. So we've got our bird box, but the actual shape of mine is more, I'm just going to roughly block it. For modeling tool, just select the edge. It's going to be one of those ones that I kind of got the slope. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. This is just for Postvis blocking. I'm just going to use some of these tools. I'm using the multi-cut now. And I'm going to go show selection highlighting. Just so it's a bit more than just a box, because after this we'll actually probably get into the modeling. So I'm just going to press scale. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be anything special. You can put a hole in there or whatever you like them, but for this it's just so we can get an idea of what we're going to do. So if I just pull this out, and hopefully you've set your layout geo to reference so you can't select it. And now we're just going to place this roughly in a decent place. So I'm just going to rotate it around. And I've done this before, so I know a fairly alright place to put it, because it's quite tricky because the tree's not flat. So we won't go through like proper integration of the plate. We just want it simple at the moment. So it's not too overcomplicated and you're not spending too much time on... I think in the next project we'll do something that's a lot more detailed. This is just to get you going, and I hope by this point that you probably do your own projects anyway. So I've roughly placed it on the tree. I'm just going to go to perspective and select my render cam. Where's my... display shapes. Where's my image plane gone? very strange. Let's change that to 1. There we go. It was just really far away. And then I'm just going to change this. In fact, it just may have needed to change it to 1,000. There we go. It gets stuck sometimes. So you can kind of see we've got it on the tree, but it's not looking very nice. It's not in a very pretty place. So I'm actually just going to sort of adjust it reasonably in camera to somewhere where it will fit. Like I said, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. It's entirely up to you. Just you just want to make it look nice in shot. Cool. So just go perspective. We'll have a look at what's going on here. So obviously, the closer you get it to the actual scan, the nicer it's going to look. And this way, you could have problems with the integration, but I think previously I had it around here, but yeah, have a play around with, at the end of the day, you might not even be doing this bird box, you might be doing something different. So that looks all right there, and if we go to our perspective, it's fairly reasonably on there. But yeah, so you would imagine that it's kind of nailed on. I'm putting my nails in the middle, basically, but you can do them wherever. And I feel that's a fairly reasonable place. So I'm just going to go to my perspective render cam. And what I can do now is, I'm just going to call this Postvis blocking underscore geo. It's just some rough geo to give us an idea of what's going on. And to sort of check that our match move is working as well. Oh, go away. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select my bird box scan. I'm going to right click and I actually don't need to do that because it's just all in front of it. I can just turn this off. And I'm just going to go to my renderer viewport. I'm just going to turn my anti-aliasing, multi-sample anti-aliasing on. So now I can see it. So now if I scrub through my timeline, this is what we're going to basically get. It's nothing amazing, but it gives us a good idea of what we're going to achieve. So if you wanted to as well, what we can do is do a little Playblast. So if you've never done a Playblast before, you can either set it up via the render settings. So we can set it up on, let's do just 720. Then you want to turn these off. And if you just go right click, select the box next to, right click in the timeline, then select the box. Then I'm just going to select image, just do it as a cheap JPEG. And you can either do it from window, so we'll just do it from this window, or from render settings. So obviously you have more control and you can save it. For this case, I'm not going to save it and I'm just going to select apply. And this will just do a quick play blast of our very rough Postvis bird box. As will be a good indicator if our track's working as well, although it's when it gets to this stage, you would definitely see it in 3D equalizer. So yeah, it should all be fine. But it's just to give you a good idea of how things are working. It's good to visualize it this way as well. So it kind of, you could have this grand plan of you're going to do this, going to do that, going to do this, but then you get to the end point, you're like, oh, it's not working. And this kind of checks those boxes for just, it's always sanity checking basically. So like you may not have planned to do, because we didn't do any integration in this. There won't be any integration in this tutorial. So, but it's just to get you going. But if I was doing this for my own project, I'd then be thinking about, I need to put some leaves, some twigs, some bits of just stuff, growth in between and on top and around, just so it sits in with that tree a little bit nicer. Because at the moment it's just sat on top and the only thing that's holding it to the tree is basically the shadow mat. But in reality, if you're doing this for like your actual real project, you want to be putting twigs, leaves, spider webs, all sorts in there, just to make it look like it's integrating a little bit better. But for this tutorial, we're not even going to do that. We're not even doing AOVs. Our lighting is just going to be HDRI, but it should get you to a really great place for your next project where you can go, hey, I know the basics of this and I can implement these to my own projects now. And it will just give you a really good understanding of the sort of pitfalls you can fall into, and it'll give you ideas of things to avoid as well. So this is loading up. It shouldn't take too long to cache. That's why I've done it at 720, so cool. And then it will play through, and you can click in the window and scrub through faster if you want. But yeah, we can see it's working. It's just a bird box on a tree. It's no fantastic. It's not going to win an Oscar, but maybe your next project will. But yeah, we're pretty much done with this now. We've set up our project. We've brought in our cameras and set up our undistorted plates. And we've done some really basic Postvis sort of stuff and did a Playblast. So we're probably just going to save. I'll just save this now. And oh, it's not in there. It's a birdbook project. I may have saved it in the wrong place, but I'm just going to version up. I'm saving it as a my ASCII. It should take a while to write, but yeah, we're pretty much done with this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's been we've not done loads, and we've just done a lot of prep work. I think the next one is definitely we're going to start some basic modelling. We're going to model up the bird box, so hopefully that's a little bit more exciting for you. But yeah, if you've enjoyed this tutorial, hit that like button and subscribe for more like this.